Ekabo, and welcome to another live stream on the Ile Ijuba Odeo Tune History Live. Today, we are going to discuss decolonizing the mind and taking charge of your life, and the subject is going to be inertia. But before we begin today's discussion, let me open by offering the Iba. Opweni fonlorun, oludabare oba jiki. Mojiloni, mowogun meriaye. Iba ila orun, iba iwo orun, iba ariwa, iba gusu, iba oba igba aye. Iba orun oke, iba baba, iba yeye, iba atiwo orun, iba she igungun kiki igungun, iba she ori, ori inu, ipori atiwo orun. Ashe, ashe, ashesheo. All right, and today, in continuing on the subject of decolonizing our minds, I want to just remind you that we have followed or completed several of the topics, including acknowledging historically the fact that we have been through many sorts of psychological changes and understanding the history of trauma with our ancestors. We've come to accept the fact that it has affected us. It has become a part of the very social pattern of our lives. And we've also recognized, because of this history, that we must reconcile with the fact that we have lost total control of our lives and of our emotions. So far, we have discussed the issue of power, the issue of ancestral support, as well as the history of honoring each other, all right, and recognizing the necessary adjustments that we must make in terms of recognizing each other as being important. All right, we also mentioned 10 questions that you must ask in order to come to a clearer understanding of situations and circumstances that may cause us to behave in a particular way. But these 10 questions will help us to recognize the situations around us, and it would allow us also to be able to come to understand the nature of the circumstances, as well as it would allow us to be able to control some of the triggers that may affect us. All right, and today we are going to deal with the issue of inertia in terms of managing our lives. All right. Now, firstly, let's look at the word inertia. All right. Inertia, by definition, represents the idea of unskillfulness, ignorance, inactivity, as well as idleness. All right. Now, we're going to look a little bit at the etymology of the word to get an idea of the essence of the word, the history of the word, and the original idea which caused the creation and use of the word. The first aspect, or the first part of the word inertia, is inner. All right, I-N-E-R, right, which come from the Latin word inertis, I-N-E-R-T-I-S. Now, inert is represented by the idea of being unskilled and inactive. All right. It was first used as a theory introduced in the 17th century by a German astronomer and physician by the name of Johann Kepler, or Johann Kepler, right, who lived between 1571 and 1630. It was also used by Newton in 1687 to represent apathy, passiveness, and inactivity. The first indication of it being used in English was in 1822. All right? It sort of reminds us of the famous parable that is called "Whose Job Is It Anyway?" All right, which I'm sure most of us might be familiar with. But this is the way the parable goes. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. So somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody would not do it. So the lesson for today, based on our understanding of the word inertia, the history of it, as well as this little parable that I just read, that is called "Whose Job Is It Anyway?" What the lesson is for today is that we must take initiative. That's the first portion of the lesson. And what do we mean when we say take initiative? What we are talking about is that we don't assume others would do the work. If you are capable of completing the task, take ownership of it. That's the first point when we are dealing with the issue of inertia and in managing our lives and in decolonizing our mind. The second important point is that as long as you are functioning in a group, it is essential that we define the roles of everyone in that group. What do we mean? We mean that we must assign clear, specific responsibilities to individuals rather than groups, so the work can actually get done. The other important point, all right, before I wrap up, is we must always avoid the blame game. And this is very, very important, because this is one of the things that destroys lots of groups and organizations. Pointing fingers does not fix ignored problems. Cultivating a culture of clear communication and individual accountability prevents bottlenecks. All right, so that completes the topic of inertia as it relates to the issue of taking control of our lives, as well as decolonizing our minds. All right, so again, the subject for today was inertia, and you were given 3 important points that are necessary for us to overcome this issue of inertia. All right, again, we must take initiative. We must define rules in a very specific way, and